Tommel stood at the edge of the broken cargo ship, dust covering his boots. The air on Orban 5 was thick and dry. Metal parts, burnt wires, and broken panels were scattered around him. Most of the wreck had already been looted by local scavengers, but Tommel was always the last one in. That's when you found the things others missed. He moved carefully through the broken hallway, flashlight in one hand, scanner in the other. The scanner blinked, weak energy reading, just a little ahead. Not power cells, something warmer, something alive. He followed the signal into a narrow chamber, sealed with a heavy door. The lock was old, maybe alien. He knelt beside it and pulled out his tools. A few minutes of sparks and clicks later, the door slid open with a groan. Inside, the room was cold and dark. In the center, there was a glass pod, half covered in dust and cables. Inside it, curled up and barely breathing, was a young alien girl. Tommel froze. She had pale silver skin, glowing eyes that were half open, and long dark hair. Her arms and legs were chained inside the pod. She looked weak, like she hadn't eaten in days. But when she saw Tommel, she blinked slowly. Her lips moved. He stepped closer. "Hey, are you hurt?" he asked softly. She said nothing at first. Then her voice came, broken and quiet. "Hus, band." Tommel blinked. He wasn't sure. He heard it right. "What did you say?" he asked, leaning in. She repeated it. A little louder this time. "Husband." Tommel looked around, nervous now. Maybe she was confused. Maybe it was a translation error. He reached for the chains, careful not to scare her. "It's okay. I'm going to get you out of here." As he touched the controls, the pod hissed and opened slowly. The cold air rushed out. Her fingers moved weakly, as if trying to help. With effort, Tommel broke the chain locks and pulled her gently out. She could barely stand. She leaned against him, her head resting on his chest. Her skin was cool to the touch. He looked around. Once more. If slavers were nearby, this could get bad fast. He tapped his communicator. "Pilot, prep the ship. I'm bringing someone aboard." His ship, the Rook, was parked just outside the crash zone. It was small but fast and hidden under a cloak. He carried the girl in his arms as they moved through the ruins. She didn't speak again, but her eyes stayed open, watching him closely, as if memorizing his face. Back on the ship, Tommel laid her gently on a bed inside the med bay. The ship's AI, Unit V7, began scanning her. Species, Zerai. Status, malnourished. Injuries, minor. Recovery possible with care. Tommel frowned. Zerai? That's not possible. They were wiped out years ago. Survivor found. Strong genetic match. Chance of error, less than 1%. He looked back at her. She was breathing more evenly now, eyes closed in sleep. Tommel sat nearby, confused. He didn't expect to find anything alive today, just scrap, maybe something to sell, But now he had a living Zerai girl on his ship, and she had called him husband. He shook his head and leaned back. This is not what I signed up for. But something inside him told him he couldn't just drop her off at the nearest port. He had seen what people did to rare aliens, especially the last of a kind. He decided right there. He would protect her, at least until she was strong enough to decide what she wanted. Later that night, Tommel heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned to see her standing in the doorway, wearing a ship blanket around her shoulders. "You should be resting," he said. She took a step forward. Her voice was clearer now, but still soft. "You saved me." He nodded. "I found you on that wreck. I couldn't leave you there." She looked down, then back at him. "My name is Mira." "Tommel," he replied. She hesitated. "In my people's way, the one who breaks the chains becomes the bonded protector. Husband." Tommel rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, I figured that's what you meant. But listen, I'm not sure you understand. I'm just a mechanic. I don't know anything about Zerai traditions or... I choose, she said. Her voice had strength. Now. Chains were forced, but I choose. Tommel didn't know what to say. You don't owe me anything, he said at last. Mira stepped closer. You did not free me for a reward. That is why I trust you. There was silence between them. Then Mira looked around the small ship. This is your home? For now, Tommel said. Not fancy, but it flies. She smiled gently. Then I will stay here. With you. Tommel nodded. Slowly. All right. You can stay, but just until we figure out what to do next. She gave a small nod and sat down beside him. Outside the window, stars moved slowly as the Rook drifted through space. Tommel looked at Mira once more. She had been a prisoner. Now she was free. And somehow that made him feel like he had a purpose again. Mira walked slowly through the narrow hall of the ship, touching the walls with wonder. Everything felt new to her. Lights, buttons, humming sounds from inside the floor. She moved carefully, as if every step might break something. Tommel sat at the control station, running system checks. His hands moved quickly across the screen, but his eyes kept watching Mira from the corner. She stopped near the window and stared at the stars. I have never seen them like this, she said. Tommel looked over. You've never been outside a ship? I was born inside one, Mira said. Not like this. Mine was full of guards, cold, always moving. Tommel stood up. He opened a storage box and pulled out a small food tray. You need to eat, he said. It's not Zerai food, but it'll help. She sat down quietly at the table. He placed the tray in front of her. She looked at the food with curiosity and took a slow bite. Her face showed surprise. It's warm, she said, and sweet. Tommel smiled a little. That's honey bread. A friend of mine from Earth makes it. I trade him spare parts for supplies. Mira nodded and continued eating slowly. She glanced up at him. Why did you save me? Tommel leaned on the table. I don't know, he said. I saw you in that pod. You were chained, hurt, alone. I couldn't walk away. Mira placed the bread down. Most people do. Walk away. I'm not most people, he replied. She studied him for a moment. My people have rules. Ancient ones. When someone frees a Zerai from bondage, they become the chosen one. The bonded protector. The husband. Tommel looked uncomfortable. I heard you call me that. But you don't really mean marriage, do you? Mira shook her head. No. Not your kind. It means more than that. It is a promise. A bond of life. The protector and the protected. Tommel sat down across from her. Mira, I'm just a mechanic. I fix ships, trade parts, and try not to get shot. I'm not a warrior or some protector from old stories. Mira didn't look away. You are kind. You are brave. You did not take me to sell. You gave me food. You gave me safety. That is enough. Tommel sighed. I'm not sure I can be what you need. Mira looked at her hands. I only need someone who won't lock me again. Someone who sees me as a person, not a prize. Tommel was quiet for a while. Then he stood up. You can stay here as long as you want. No chains, no cages, just my ship. And maybe some bad jokes. She smiled softly. I accept. Later, Tommel brought out a small translator chip. This will help. It'll make it easier to talk with the ship and others, he said. Mira tilted her head. Put it behind your ear, he explained. She took it carefully and followed his direction. A small beep came from the device and her eyes widened. I can understand everything now, she said slowly. Tommel nodded. Language chip. Earth tech. Very useful. Mira looked at him with wonder. You have many things. You are a man of tools. I like machines. They make sense. People... Not always. Mira tilted her head. I want to learn. Learn what? Your tools, your ship, your work, she said with interest. Tommel was surprised. You want to learn engineering? I want to be useful, Mira said. Not just follow, not just hide. He looked at her and saw something strong in her eyes. Not a helpless girl anymore. She was ready to grow. All right, he said. Lesson starts tomorrow, but first you rest. Mira nodded. The next day, Tommel gave her a tour of the engine room. He showed her the fuel lines, the control panels, and the cooling system. This is the main power line, he said, tapping a thick cable. Don't touch it unless the ship is off, or you'll get fried. Mira listened closely, asking questions. She remembered every detail. She wasn't just curious, she was sharp. Tommel handed her a small tool. Let's see if you can open that panel without breaking it. She knelt beside the wall and worked slowly. After a few tries, the panel came loose without damage. Tommel raised his eyebrows. Not bad. You learn fast. Mira looked up at him. I had nothing to do when I was locked. Only think. Only watch. Tommel nodded slowly. He began to understand how strong her mind was, even if her body was still healing. Later, they sat near the small window, watching the stars move outside. Mira turned to him. There is a word in my language. Velai. It means freedom with trust. Nice word, Tommel said. I feel it here, on this ship, with you. Tommel looked at her. I'll protect you, Mira. I won't let anyone take you back. She reached out and gently held his hand. I believe you. The ship floated in silence, but inside, something had changed. Not just safety, not just kindness. A bond was forming, slowly, honestly. Mira was no longer just a rescued girl. She was becoming something more, and Tommel, though unsure, was starting to accept it. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing. He wasn't alone anymore. Tommel stood at the control panel of the Rook, watching the navigation screen. Stars moved slowly across the glass as the ship glided through empty space. Behind him, Mira entered the room quietly. She was wearing a simple suit now, one Tommel had, adjusted to fit her. Her eyes had more life in them than before. The fear was fading. Strength was returning. Where are we going? She asked softly. Tommel turned. There's a station near the edge of the belt line. Quiet place. I know someone there who can help us understand more about your people. Maybe he can tell us why you were locked in that pod. Mira nodded. Good. I want to know. I don't want to run from my past anymore. Tommel respected that. She had been through so much, yet she still wanted answers. She wanted to face the truth. The station was called Drift Point 7, a floating trade post built into a hollowed-out asteroid. Tommel landed the Rook on the lower deck, where few people asked questions. As they stepped out, Mira stayed close to him. Her head stayed up, eyes watching everything, but her hand brushed against Tommel's arm. He said nothing, but he noticed. Inside the station, lights flickered and voices echoed in different languages. Shops sold scrap, spices, and strange tools. Tommel led Mira through narrow halls until they reached a small office with a sign that read, Archivist Len Tommel knocked. A voice answered. Go away if you're selling weapons. I'm not interested. It's me, Len, Tommel called back. Tommel, I brought something you'll want to see. There was silence. Then the door opened. An older man with mechanical eyes stood there. Tommel? He asked. I thought you were dead. Not yet, Tommel said with a smile, but I need your help. Len looked at Mira. His expression changed. Is that a... She's Zerai, Tommel said. Alive. Her name is Mira. Len stepped aside quickly. Get inside, now, both of you. Inside the office, books and screens filled every wall. Old star maps blinked on dusty monitors. Len sat down and looked at Mira carefully. "I haven't seen one of your kind since I was a child," he said. "I thought your people were gone." "We were hunted," Mira said. "Captured. Sold. I was one of the last." Len rubbed his beard. "Some people still believe the Zerai hold the key to something powerful. A weapon. A machine. That's why slavers still search ruins. They think your blood can open it." Mira looked at Tommel. "I was locked because of that," she said. Tommel nodded. "Do you know what they're looking for?" he asked Len. Len stood up and pulled a dusty crate from the shelf. Inside was a small metallic cube with strange carvings. This was taken from an old Zerai vault. "It only responds to Zerai touch. I never found anyone who could activate it." He placed it on the table and looked at Mira. "Try touching it." Mira stepped forward and gently placed her fingers on the cube. A soft blue light appeared. The carvings began to shift. Then a small hologram rose from the cube, showing a large space station shaped like a wheel, surrounded by chains of light. "A memory device," Len said. It worked. The hologram spoke in the Zerai language, but the translator chip made the words clear. "To the last blood of Zerai. The Chain Father sleeps, but one day it may rise again. Only a true Zerai can awaken or destroy it. If it falls into the wrong hands, freedom across the stars will end." The light faded. Silence filled the room. Tommel looked at Mira. "Chain Father?" he asked. Mira looked shaken. "It was a myth, a machine used by ancient rulers to control minds and systems. I didn't think it was real." Len sat down, face pale. "If slavers think you can unlock it, they won't stop. They'll chase you across the galaxy." Tommel stood up. "Then we have to stay ahead of them." Len nodded. "There's more. After I found that cube, someone broke into my lab. They stole part of the map it showed. I think they were from the Red Waste sector." Tommel looked at Mira. "We have to go there. If someone has that piece, they might try to find the Chain Father." Mira didn't hesitate. "Then we must stop them." Len gave them supplies and handed Mira a small Zerai tool. "This might help. Only your kind can use it." Mira took it and gave him a small bow. "Thank you, Archivist." Len smiled sadly. "Stay safe, girl. Your kind was noble once. Maybe it still is." Back on the Rook, Tommel and Mira prepared for launch. Tommel checked the ship's shields. "We might be flying into trouble. You sure you want to come?" Mira sat in the co-pilot seat. "I want to protect the stars. My people failed. I won't." Tommel looked at her and saw not just a rescued girl, but someone rising from her past. "You're not alone," he said. She smiled. "I know. Husband." Tommel gave a small smile. He still wasn't used to that word, but when she said it, it felt more like honor than a title. The ship lifted off. Engines glowed as they entered the dark. Behind them, Drift Point faded. Ahead, danger waited, but Mira was ready, and so was Tommel. Tommel adjusted the flight path as the Rook neared the planet Veltrax 9. The world below was covered in thick clouds and strange green storms. Lightning danced across the sky as their ship entered the atmosphere. "This place gives me a bad feeling," he muttered. Mira sat beside him, calm and focused. "The cube showed this planet. It once held a Zerai temple. If the Chain Father was truly real, the answers will be there." Tommel glanced at her. "Let's hope we don't wake something worse." The ship passed through a storm belt and landed inside a canyon hidden deep within. The planet's surface. The winds howled above, but down here it was silent. Only the sound of hissing steam and shifting rock filled the air. Tommel grabbed his gear, tools, a light pack, and a scanner. Mira wore her new cloak, one Len had given her. It carried an old Zerai symbol across the back, one that shimmered faintly, under light. They walked through the canyon together, boots crunching over stone. After a short hike, Mira stopped and pointed. "There," she said. In front of them stood a stone door built into the rock wall. Symbols glowed faintly on its surface. Tommel scanned it. No power, no movement. Maybe it needs a key. Mira stepped forward. As she touched the stone, the symbols brightened. The ground shook slightly, and the door slowly opened. Tommel stared. I guess you are the key. They entered carefully. The air was heavy with dust. Inside, the walls were covered in ancient carvings showing Zerai ships, cities, and machines linked by chains of energy. In the center of the room stood a pedestal with a black sphere hovering above it. Mira stepped toward it, her hand raised slowly. Tommel moved beside her. Careful. We don't know what it does. I feel drawn to it, Mira said. She touched the sphere. A bright flash lit the room. Suddenly, they were surrounded by moving images, like a memory made of light. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. You have entered the Hall of Memory. This place holds the last truth of the Zerai legacy. The images showed the rise of the Zerai. Once peaceful rulers, they had discovered a machine buried deep beneath a red world. It was alive and powerful. It could control minds, lock systems, and bend free will. They called it the Chainfather. It was meant to protect the Zerai. But over time, it turned on them. It used their own technology to bind entire star systems. Many Zerai fought against it. Most were destroyed. One small group managed to trap the Chainfather deep in space, locked behind a coded system that only a Zerai bloodline could open. The voice continued. To protect the future, the Zerai left guardians and keys across the stars. Only one of true blood, free by choice, can shut the Chainfather forever. The images faded. The room grew dark again. Mira stepped back, her face pale. It was real. All of it. My people created it. And it destroyed us. Tommel placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not to blame. You weren't there. But I carry their blood. That means it's my burden to end what they started, she said. Tommel nodded slowly. Then we'll do it together. Suddenly, a sharp beep came from his wristband. His eyes narrowed. We're not alone. Motion detected outside the canyon. Mira looked toward the entrance. Slavers? Maybe worse. They hurried back through the hallway. Outside, the wind had grown, stronger. When they reached the edge of the canyon, Tommel saw 3 ships hovering above. One was marked with red lines, the sign of the Varn Syndicate, a group known for collecting rare beings and ancient tech. They found us, he said. Blaster fire rained down. Tommel grabbed Mira's hand and ran back toward the rocks. Explosions shook the ground behind them. We can't outrun them, Mira said. Tommel pulled a small device from his belt and pressed it. I sent a signal to the Rook. It'll come to us. We just need to hold out. Mira took cover behind a stone and raised the Zerai tool Len had given her. It glowed in her hand. She aimed it, and a pulse of energy struck the lead ship, sending it spinning. Tommel ducked behind another rock and fired, back with his blaster. Nice shot, he said. I didn't know I could do that, she replied. More troops dropped from the sky. They wore metal armor and had red eyes under their helmets. One of them shouted, "The girl is the key! Take her alive!" Mira's eyes narrowed. I will not be chained again. She raised the tool once more and unleashed a wave of light that pushed the attackers back. Just then, the Rook flew overhead. Its landing ramp opened, and the ship hovered low. Run! Tommel shouted. They sprinted forward. Tommel covered Mira while she jumped onto the ramp. Then he followed, shooting at the enemy below. Once they were inside, the ramp closed. The ship rose quickly, flying up through the storm. In the cockpit, Mira took the co-pilot seat. Her hands shook slightly, but her eyes were full of fire. They won't stop, she said. They want the Chainfather. They want control. Tommel nodded. Then we stopped them first. She looked at him. Together? Always, Tommel said, as the ship flew toward the stars. The memory of the Zerai temple stayed in their minds. They had uncovered a truth hidden for centuries, and now they carried the last chance to stop the return of a great evil. Mira was no longer just the last of her kind. She was the last hope. The Rook moved through deep space at high speed. Stars stretched outside the windows like silent rivers of light. Inside the ship, Tommel sat at the control desk, studying a blinking red signal on the map. Mira stood beside him, her arms crossed, and eyes focused. "They're getting closer," Tommel said. "Whoever stole the map piece from Len's lab is already near the Chainfather's location." Mira's voice was calm but firm. "They plan to awaken it. They don't understand what it will do. It will not obey. It will take control." Tommel zoomed in on the star system. A strange gas giant floated in the center. Hidden within its thick clouds, the scanner showed something large. "That must be the Chainfather." "It's sleeping in the storm," he said. Mira placed her hand on the console. "My blood opens the door. That means they need me alive. Or they'll try to break the code by force." Tommel looked at her. "Then we better get there first." They reached the outer edge of the storm system 2 hours later. The planet was covered in heavy clouds. Lightning burst across its surface, and strange energy waves rippled through space. Tommel pushed the ship forward. The closer they flew, the more the instruments glitched. "The system is interfering with everything," he said. "We're going in blind." Mira placed her hand on the window. "I can feel something. It's old, angry, waiting." The Rook shook as they passed through. The storm wall. At the center of the gas giant, hidden beneath the clouds, they saw it. A giant structure floated in the sky, round and dark, with thousands of chains glowing around it. The chains moved slowly, like a living web. "That's it," Tommel whispered. "The Chainfather." Suddenly, a red light blinked on the screen. "Another ship is approaching," the system said. Mira narrowed her eyes. They made it. Tommel watched as a black warship dropped out of hyperspace. It was marked with the Varn Syndicate symbol. "They brought a full fleet," he said. "They're not here to ask questions." A message came through. The screen lit up with the face of a man in a silver mask. "You have something we need," the voice said. "The Zerai girl. Hand her over and leave this place. You don't understand the power you're touching." Tommel answered calmly. "You don't either. That thing isn't a tool. It's a trap." The masked man leaned forward. "You will regret this. Open fire!" Blaster fire lit the sky. The Rook spun sideways and dodged quickly. Tommel pulled the ship behind a floating chain and activated the cloak. "They're scanning for us," he said. "We have maybe 5 minutes." Mira stood and opened the storage panel. Inside was the Zerai tool. She gripped it tightly. "I can end this," she said. "If I can reach the control core inside the Chainfather, I can shut it forever." Tommel turned to her. "It's too dangerous. That place was built to stop invaders. We don't even know how to get inside." Mira stepped closer. "But I do. I saw the way in. The temple showed me. If we wait, they will reach it first. Then everything will be lost." Tommel stared at her. She looked small, but her eyes were strong. "All right," he said. "We do it together. You lead. I'll protect you." They launched a small pod and flew through the storm toward the Chainfather. The chains opened slowly as Mira raised the Zerai tool. The machine responded to her presence. Inside, the air was heavy. The walls were alive with lights and moving metal. The entire structure hummed, like a machine breathing. They moved carefully. Through the halls, Mira led the way, following the path shown to her in the memory temple. At the center, they reached a massive chamber. A glowing throne stood at the far end. Above it, a massive core pulsed like a heart. "The mind of the Chainfather," Mira said. Before they could move, the voice of the masked man echoed through the chamber. He stepped out from the shadows, guards behind him. "You came to shut it down. Foolish. He pulled a weapon and pointed it at Mira. With your blood, I will control every colony, every mind, every system. The galaxy will kneel. Tommel stepped. In front of her. You're not taking her, the man laughed. You think one human can stop this? Tommel smiled slightly. No, but I'm not alone. Mira raised the Zerai tool. A bright light filled the room. The control core reacted, chains moving toward her. The masked man fired, but Mira lifted her hand. A barrier of energy stopped the blast. I am the last of the Zerai, she said. This machine obeys my voice, not yours. She walked toward the core. The chains began to twist and shake. The walls turned red. Tommel grabbed Mira's arm. What are you doing? I'm giving it a final command, she said. To end. The core spoke. Zerai blood detected. State command. Mira spoke firmly. Shut down. Forever. The machine paused. Then the chains began to break. The lights turned blue. All across the chamber, energy collapsed. No! The masked man shouted. You can't! A burst of power hit him and his guards. They vanished in a flash of light. Mira fell. To her knees, tired but alive. Tommel ran to her side. You did it, he said, holding her. I didn't do it alone, she whispered. Back on the Rook, they watched as the Chainfather began to fall apart. The storm swallowed the machine. Across the galaxy, systems once locked. By the Syndicate began to wake. Ships moved freely. Voices returned to silent worlds. Tommel looked at Mira. You freed them all. She nodded slowly. My people caused the chains, but we also had the power to break them. I was just the last hand, Tommel smiled, and I was just the mechanic who picked the right wreck. They both laughed softly. As stars moved past them, they knew this wasn't the end. Others would come, but now they had hope, together. After the battle at the Chainfather, Tommel and Mira returned to the Rook, exhausted but alive. The storm outside was calm now, the machine's power fading like a distant echo. Inside the ship, silence filled the space between them. Neither spoke, much at first. Tommel worked quietly at the control panel, repairing the damage the fight had caused. Mira sat nearby, watching him. She looked stronger than before, but her eyes held a new weight. The memories of the battle and the machine stayed with her. Tommel, she said softly, breaking the quiet. He looked up. Yes? I want to learn more. About your world. About your tools. About how to help. Tommel smiled faintly. You're already helping more than you know. Mira shook her head. I need to be ready. If others come looking for the Chainfather's secrets, we must stop them. Tommel nodded slowly. All right. We start with the basics. Over the next days, Tommel taught Mira how to fix small machines on the ship. He showed her how to use tools, read star maps, and repair circuits. Mira learned quickly. Her hands moved, with confidence now. One morning, Tommel found Mira in the engine room, carefully adjusting wires on the main power converter. Not bad, he said, watching her. She looked up, smiling. I want to do more than fix. I want to protect. Tommel's smile grew. We'll get you there. But first we build the bond. Mira raised an eyebrow. What bond? Tommel stepped closer. Between us. The word you used before, husband. In your culture it means protector. But here, it means something more. It means trust, partnership, respect. Mira considered this. In my people's past, bonds were made by blood and promise. But I want ours to be different. Made by choice. Tommel nodded. Choice is the strongest bond. That evening, they sat near the observation window, watching the stars swirl outside. Mira broke the silence. Tell me about your home. Tommel smiled softly. Not much to tell. A small town on Earth. Quiet. Boring. Mira laughed lightly. Quiet can be good. Tommel looked at her. Where did you grow up? In a ship like this? But it was a prison. She touched her chest lightly. Chains are not always metal. Sometimes they are fear and silence. Tommel reached out, taking her hand gently. We'll break all those chains. Together. She smiled, squeezing his hand. The next day, Tommel received a message from Len, the archivist. They found my lab again, the message said. I barely escaped. You should be careful. Tommel frowned. Slavers or worse. Mira stood beside him. They will not stop. The Chainfather's secret is too powerful. Tommel set the ship on course toward Len's location. We need allies. We cannot do this alone. Mira nodded. I trust you. During the trip, Mira practiced using the Zerai tool Len had given her. The tool was more than a weapon. It was a key, a link to her people's past. She held it every night, learning its energy, feeling the strength it gave her. Tommel watched her quietly. You've changed, he said one evening. She smiled softly. I am not the same girl you found. I am stronger. Tommel looked at her with respect. And you are not alone. When they arrived at Len's new hideout, it was small but secure. The archivist greeted them with tired eyes but hope in his voice. You're getting close, he said. Others are moving too. We must be ready. Tommel and Mira prepared their equipment and planned their next move. We have to find the remaining pieces of the map, Mira said. If we lose them, the Chainfather's power may return. Tommel agreed. We'll protect each other. No more running. Mira looked at him, her eyes shining. That is the promise of a true bond. Days passed as they worked together, fixing the ship, sharing stories, and planning. Slowly, their relationship grew from simple protector and rescued to partners and equals. One night, Tommel caught Mira looking out the window, her face calm and peaceful. Thinking about the future? He asked. She turned and smiled. Yes. For the first time, I see hope. Tommel reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Then we'll face it together, whatever comes. Mira nodded, leaning into his hand. Together. The stars. Outside seemed brighter now. The chains of the past were breaking, not just in space, but in their hearts. Tommel and Mira were no longer alone. They had each other, and that made all the difference. The stars outside the Rook shimmered gently as the ship moved through quiet space. Tommel and Mira sat side by side in the small cabin. The battles were over for now. The Chainfather was no longer a threat, but their journey was far from finished. Tommel looked at Mira. Her eyes were calm and bright. She no longer seemed like the frightened girl he had rescued months ago. Now she was strong, full of hope. Mira, he said softly, what do you want to do next? She smiled, reaching out to. Take his hand. I want to find a home, a place where I am not the last of my kind, where I am free to be me, not a prisoner or a weapon. Tommel nodded. I think we can find that. Together. They set a course for the Zerai Refuge, a hidden colony said to be safe for survivors of her people. The trip would take weeks, but the promise of a future kept them steady. During the long journey, they spent time repairing the ship, sharing stories, and learning more about each other. Tommel taught Mira how to navigate by the stars. Mira taught Tommel Zerai phrases and traditions. One evening, Mira asked about Tommel's past. Did you always want to be a mechanic? Tommel laughed lightly. No, I wanted adventure. But life brought me here, fixing broken things, helping people, like you. Mira smiled. You have given me more than freedom. You have given me hope. When they finally reached the hidden colony, it was nestled inside a green moon orbiting a distant star. The buildings were simple but bright, surrounded by trees and open sky. As the Rook landed, people came out to greet them. Many were like Mira, strong survivors, kind and curious. They welcomed her with open arms. Tommel watched as Mira talked with the others. She was smiling, laughing, sharing stories of her journey. Later, Mira turned to Tommel. "This is home," she said. Tommel smiled back. "It is." Over time, Mira helped rebuild her people's culture. She used her knowledge to teach others how to protect themselves and honor their past without fear. Tommel stayed by her side, offering help with the colony's machines and ships. Their bond grew deeper, not just as protector and rescued, but as equals and friends. One day, Mira took Tommel's hand and said, "In my culture, the bond of husband is sacred. It is built on trust, respect, and choice." Tommel squeezed her hand gently. "I choose you, Mira, not because I have to, but because I want to." She smiled softly. "Then we are truly bonded." Their life was not perfect. Challenges still came. Some outsiders sought the lost secrets of the Chain Father, but now Mira was not alone. Tommel stood with her. Together they faced each new danger with courage. Their story became one of hope, a story of freedom, trust, and new beginnings. As the colony thrived, Tommel and Mira stood beneath the stars. Mira whispered, "I was once chained. Now I am free, not just by breaking metal, but by choosing love." Tommel pulled her close. "And I am lucky to be called your husband." They watched the stars together, ready for whatever came next.